let's set up an API client in our Blazor Web App front end so we can call the API easily without needing to worry about where it's located on the web or dealing with connection strings or URLs or anything else. Now, this video is part of a series dedicated to developing C# applications on Linux. Along the way, we're getting a better knowledge of how Linux works and how to make our apps truly cross-platform. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel to stay informed of new episodes as they come out. And if you're looking for even more .NET, SQL, and other .NET and C# related training, go to imtimcorey.com. It's what funds this free content. So let's look at our web project. What we're going to do in here is create a new file. Let's call this, how about ticket API client.cs. Again, we're just creating a CS file, the C# file. So we're going to say namespace. This is going to be tinyticket.web. It's right in the root. And we'll say public class. Actually, we're going to make this public sealed class. Now, we don't have to make it sealed, but this does is it says, hey, we're not going to allow inheritance from here. We're sealing this off because this is kind of the end stop. We're not going to deal with anything else, which means it makes life a little easier for the system when it works with this class. So public sealed class, ticket API client, and we are going to bring in one thing in the constructor. So this is something newer in .NET, and this is a constructor argument. So we're going to say HTTP client, and we'll say call us HTTP client. So instead of bringing this in through a constructor, we're going to bring it in through our class itself. Now, what this does is this is not going to be read-only. If you bring it in the class and you create a private variable for it, you make that private variable read-only, then it kind of locks it down a bit more. But if you really wanted to, worry about that, we could say HTTP client, actually private read-only HTTP client, and then say HTTP client, I believe equals HTTP client, like so. I believe that'll work, and now make it read-only. So we're not going to worry about it because I don't think it's necessary for this case, but just know that's a possibility. We are going to say private const string and say base route equals, and let's say /API/tickets. So this is the base route to our API. So this ticket API client is going to bring in the HTTP client. It's going to then make calls to the tickets API, the ticket API client, or ticket API, I'm sorry. And that's going to call, the get one, the post, the put, and the delete calls. So all of those are /API/tickets. So we're going to start there. Then what we'll do is we're going to say, because the HTTP client has a base URL that starts with, we're adding this on top of it. Okay, so public async, we're going to say task of type list of ticket model. Like so, that brings in the using directive. So it's the list of ticket model, and we're going to say get tickets. And we'll say get tickets async. This is a bit of debate for me, but I think that it adds some value. We've talked about it before, but get tickets works as long as all the calls are asynchronous, and that's asynchronous. But this is more explicit, especially since some calls don't have to be asynchronous. There we go. Now we could pass in a cancellation token. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're just going to say, let's go with list of ticket model, and we'll say tickets equals await HTTP client dot get from JSON async, and we're going to pass in a list of ticket model. Yes, it scrolls for now, and we'll pass in our base route. And then we'll pass in default for our cancellation token. Okay, so this we can unpin to see that that kind of fits. And it's returning a non-nullable to a possible null. So what we're going to do is say, yes, this is nullable, like so. There we go. And we can just do this, and that takes care of the spacing. I think that's fine. And then what we're going to do is return tickets or a empty list of ticket model. Now, this is a newer syntax as well, these square brackets. It tries to figure out, hey, what's the type I'm supposed to be? And it creates that type. So the square brackets is not an array. It's actually going to be a list of ticket model, but it's going to be an empty list of ticket model. So this returns tickets, but if it's null, that's the question mark, then it returns an empty list. Okay, that's it for getting tickets. What that'll do is it'll get all the tickets and return them all as a list of ticket model. Okay, so next what we're going to do is do the same exact thing, except we're going to do a get one. So let's say public async task of type ticket model, and we're going to say this is nullable. And then we're going to say get ticket async. And then we're going to say int ID. Okay, so we're going to ask for one ID for the get ticket as opposed to get tickets. Again, plural versus singular. We want one ticket back. And this is where we're going to do that same, different get call, passing in the ID. So we're going to say, let's do var response. And actually, you know what? Let's do var up here. Because that does make this a lot shorter, and we're repeating ourselves anyways over here with what it's returning. And the only thing it does make it nullable. But var response, and we're going to say var response equals await HttpClient dot get async. And we're going to say we want to take our base route. So let's take our string interpolation and say, I want the base route. But then at the end of that, I want my ID. Okay. And then we're going to pass in a default for our cancellation token. Okay. So why are you yelling at me here? Because this should be right. The call is ambiguous between the following properties. Okay, so this isn't like the fact that I'm using default here for my cancellation token. Let's just not pass it in. Okay, so then what we do is you don't pass it in, there's no cancellation token. All right, if response.status code, remember you can have different status codes, equals status code dot not found. Okay, now we don't need to have all of this. We can get rid of this and then say control dot to add the using directive. If it says not found, like it doesn't find the record, then return null, as in we didn't find anything. But otherwise, we're going to say is response dot ensure success code. So if we don't find it, we're cool with that. Like we know that is a possibility, and we're going to return null, meaning you looked up ID number -1. That's not in the database. No problem. You tried. It's not there. So we return null, not an exception. We don't need to have an exception for that. But if it's not the not found and it's not a success status code, that's something different. Maybe it's a 500 error saying there's a problem with a server. Maybe we've got a 403 error where we're not authorized for something. Those all are problems we haven't dealt with here. And so this response.ensure status code is going to throw an exception if the status code is false for a success. Okay, so if it's not successful, it's going to return an exception, which is what we want because it's something exceptional happened, something out of our expected values happened. Otherwise, return await response.content dot read from JSON async. And then we're going to say ticket model. And there we go. So now we have our get one ticket. This is going to return one ticket or no tickets. Otherwise, it's going to throw an exception. Okay. Now, notice this order is important. If we do this, because this is not a success status code, the not found, so 404. That's not a success status code. Therefore, we have to do this first. Otherwise, it throws an exception. We're okay with 404. Therefore, we return null for that. We're done. But if it's not 404, we come down here and say, hey, throw an exception if it's not a success status code, which would be 200, 201, etc. in the success range. So if it's not in that success range, throw an exception. But if it is, then we return the value because now you got a good value for this. So that order is all important because of the fact that the returns happen for each of these things. Okay, so that is the get. Let's now go to public async. If I can spell. Public async, and we're going to do a task, and this is going to be create ticket async. And we're going to say ticket insert model. We'll call this ticket, and that'll be it. And then here we're going to say, follow the same pattern, var response equals await HttpClient dot post as JSON async. Pass in the base route, and then the ticket. Okay, so there's our response, and then response dot ensure success status code. So again, this is going to do the same ensure success status code, meaning it's going to throw an exception if it's not in the 200, 201, etc. Success range. But that's all we're doing because we're just creating, and that create just goes, yep, you created. We're not sending back data from that. Therefore, all we need to do is make sure that we are successful in the creation, and we're done. Okay, that's it for creating. Now let's do updating, which is going to be very similar. Public async task update ticket async. And we're going to pass in the ticket update model, ticket. And then in here, we're going to do the same thing, var response equals await HttpClient dot put as JSON async. And we're going to pass in the base route. And we're going to pass in the ticket. And again, like before, response dot ensure success status code. Same pattern. By the way, let's just change this right here. Let's not even pass in. Let's just say like so. Follow the same pattern all the way down throughout. Okay. Finally, we have one more call to make, and you should probably know what that is. Public async task delete ticket async. Pass in int ID. And we're going to do the var response equals await HttpClient dot delete async. And this we're going to build our path to. So we're going to say string interpolation. And then we're going to say base route. And then we'll say slash and ID. Like so. So that deletes asynchronously, and you've probably guessed it by now, response dot ensure success status code. So we're making sure that we have a successful call. Okay, that's it for API client. Now, why do all of this work? Well, notice that all the calls to the API, specifically the ticket API, all of them are done in this one class. So when it comes to our our forms, our pages, all we have to do is say, hey, I want the tickets, get all the tickets. And we get back a list of ticket model. When we say, I want one ticket, we say get ticket async. We get back one ticket or null. If we want to create a ticket, we just pass a ticket in. So what we're doing is very, very similar. If we go over here and look, we have in our API service, we talk to SQL. And what do we do in SQL is very, very similar. Let's go actually here and look at, in our API, we're just saying, hey, save data. Hey, save data. Hey, get data, right? Where is it? Right there. Load data. So it's a very similar process where we're not concerning ourselves in here how to talk to SQL. Now we are saying store procedures, that's it. We could even wrap it even further into something like this, but this is kind of like the next level up, which is we don't have to worry about where this API is. We don't have to worry about how it connects. We don't have to worry about URLs or paths or anything like that. All we need to do is say, I want to create a ticket. Here's the ticket that I want to create. Done. That's it. So this makes our life a whole lot easier when it comes to working with the API now in our components. So what we'll do in the next lesson is we're going to pop open the components and create in here a new page for tickets. And we'll start working on first getting a list of tickets and going from there. So really, we haven't done anything in this video yet that we can see working. I always like to keep, see things working as soon as possible. But what we've done instead is set ourselves up for long-term success in ease of use of our development. Now, we're not quite done yet. We do need to come down here to our program.cs, and we need to put into our services, we need to add that API client. So how do we do that? Well, I actually deleted one already. We're going to start over and say builder.services.add HTTP client. And this is a strongly typed client called ticket API client. And we're going to say client, and we'll do the arrow, and then we'll do our curly braces like so. And then let's put a semicolon at the end so we're kind of done when we're done. All right, in here, the only thing we need to do is say client.base address equals new, and then in here for the HTTP client builder, this is a URI builder. We're going to say new, we'll say HTTPS, and we'll say plus HTTP, which just says, hey, we're going to default to HTTPS, and say API service. That's it. And why that? Because this is getting wired up through our Aspire to say, oh, I know what that is, and it's going to point to the right location, and we're done. So with all of that, we're set now. We've got our client in place. We don't have to ask for HTTP client now in the forms. We just need to ask for ticket API client, which will also be in services. So we don't have to ask for HTTP client or HTTP client factor or anything else like that. We just need to ask for the ticket API client. That will be able to do all of the work. So we're all set up now for the next lesson where we can start working on our form. All right. The source code for this is down in the description. You can download it. Thanks for watching. As always, I am Tim Corey.